You've heard the age-old debate when it comes to creating stories. Is it better to be a plotter or a pantser? What exactly does that even mean? And which one are you? There are many famous authors that swear by being a pantser, but there are also just as many famous authors who swear by being a plotter. In this video, I'll go over the two main methods of story discovery and help you find out which one is better for you. A plotter, also known as an architect, is somebody who plans out their story and takes heavy notes before they actually start writing it. It's not uncommon for a plotter to have a 10,000 word outline for a 50,000 word book. That said, plotting is definitely a spectrum. There's a lot of people who just do a couple hundred word outline before they get going. There are a couple benefits to being a plotter, namely, you'd know where the story's going to go, or at least you have a very solid idea of it, before you actually sit down and start writing it. And you are able to see things from a bit more of a wide macro perspective and make adjustments and guide the story as needed through that. There's going to be surprises either way when you're writing, but there are going to be less for you, and you're able to make the slight adjustments before you really get into the weeds of it and everything gets too complicated. Being a plotter, it definitely gives you an advantage when it comes to working out plot holes and conflicts on the timeline ahead of time. And it tends to create a very precise novel where you don't have to worry about forgetting things. You get to see how it's all going to play out, and you're going to be able to have confidence that it'll be at least a pretty good first draft. I would also mention that it definitely does help you write faster, and it does give you some guidelines to work within. A common problem with plotters is that the story at the end will feel too plot driven, and it can end up with something that people call slideshow syndrome, which is kind of the equivalent of if you go on a vacation, for example, and then when you come home, you're showing your friends all these pictures, and you're saying, and this is when we went to the Pantheon, and this is Venice, and this is the Forum, and this is Pompeii. It just seems like you're kind of there, and then there, and then there, and then there. And it can sometimes, if you're a plotter, not feel like you're really getting in depth with it, and feel like you and your characters aren't living in the moment and happening spontaneously. Sometimes it can even make the reader feel like they're being sort of pushed along in a display, or maybe like they're stuck in a roller coaster and it's got a very fixed track that they can see ahead of time type of thing. It can also make characters feel kind of like cardboard cutouts or stand-ins, and it can make conflict feel a little bit forced. At the worst end of it, if it's executed poorly, it can also feel generic and formulaic. Pantsers are called that because they're said to write by the seat of their pants. They go in with little to no plan and sort of discover the story as they go along and as it forms. They're also called gardeners, and the reasoning behind that is it's kind of like they're planting a seed and watching it grow in real time. Pantsers will write down notes, but they try to minimize it, and a lot of them pride themselves on writing the fewest notes possible. Common strengths for pantsers include character moments and dialogue. The characters feel more real and feel more like actual people, and the moments seem more authentic and like there's more agency to what's happening. And the reason for that, a lot of the times, can be because that's literally what's happening. The characters in a pantser's world will definitely tell the pantser what they're going to do and how things are going to happen. The characters will make decisions that derail what the author has in their mind going into it, but an author with this writing style will tend to let them do that in the name of authenticity. Common weaknesses for pantsers include plot and pacing. The overabundance of freedom and that lack of structure, and the fact that decisions are being made on the fly, can really lead to a sense of meandering or lagging. And on top of that, a pantser tends to take significantly longer to write because they're still in the creative process when it comes to every single writing session, and it's taking per capita a lot more brain power than if they would have had a bit of a plan going into things. It can also lead to timing issues, plot holes, and a bunch of other issues too. That said, both of these examples I've given are assuming you have to be one or the other, right? That they're taking extreme positions. As a writer, you are going to be on one end or the other of the spectrum, typically not right in the middle, but you'll favor one side over the other, but you'll be both of them at once. You don't have to choose one. You can take the strengths of both, and by doing that, you can lessen the drawbacks or weaknesses of the opposite side. Choosing to favor one style over the other doesn't guarantee a specific outcome. You can still have really good characters as a plotter, and you can still have a really tight, cohesive plot as a pantser as well. As with most things in art, it's mostly about preference. You got to get in there and you got to actually write and find out what works for you, what suits your style. For me, when I started out, I was mostly a pantser. I went in there with just a few really cool big ideas written down, a few really cool points and whatnot, and I sort of let the story grow from there. As I get more into it and further along in the career, I find that my outlines become significantly longer and more detailed. Not necessarily because one style is better than the other, but just because that's what ends up working for me. I tend to have a really bad problem if I don't have my notes of taking way too long to think and consider stuff. I definitely do a lot better if I give myself a certain structure and I put certain story beats in there, and then I can build up from that. The key takeaway here is to not get married to a single method. The process in which you create your art doesn't make the art any more or less valid. So, if you're a plotter, maybe try getting into your book even if you've only got 20 to 40% of an outline going. Feel it out and add your ideas as they go along. You can continue to build up your outline as you're working on the parts that you've already planned out. And based on the fact that it takes longer to write than it does to outline, there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to catch up to your outline. If something changes or if your characters do something that makes you need to change up your outline or where your plot is going, just do it. I've had it on more than one occasion where the whole third act of my book was completely different to what I had outlined. And I even had it one time where there was a character who was supposed to live all the way to the end of a book. Won't say which character or which book, but this character was supposed to live all the way to the end of a book, and he died less than halfway through. So that altered over half the outline on that one. All in all, it was the much better choice to go with that and to let the story tell me what to do there. And it definitely made for a much better book. So, like I said, don't be afraid of letting your book or your story, if you're doing a script, be what it tells you it wants to be. For the pantsers, you are a writer. Don't pride yourself on not writing down notes. It's going to be written down anyways when you're in the actual book, but if you forget it in the meantime, then it won't. And artists do forget really, really good stuff, some of their best ideas, all the time before they're even able to finish making it. And if you don't want that to be you, just do a little bit of, just a tiny bit at least, of taking notes just to protect yourself from waking up one day and realizing, wow, that incredible character or idea for a book, totally gone. Stephen King is a very prolific example of a pantser, and he says don't write anything down because good ideas, big ideas will stick with you. But he was writing so much that he was pumping out 160,000 or 180,000 word books in 3 months. That's not what a normal person is doing. A first-time author tends to take anywhere between 6 months to 2 years to finish their story. So you're going to have anywhere between twice as long to forget or 8 times as long to forget your ideas as he did. Keep in mind, in the videos and in the quotes where he's saying don't write down ideas, he freely admits you're forgetting stuff, but from his perspective, it is the stuff that is okay to forget. That said, if he's forgotten it, he's probably not quite 100% aware of what it was. He's probably got like an okayish idea of what it was. But for all we know, he could have been putting out even better books if he had actually just taken a couple of quick bullet points. So no matter who you are, take at least some notes. Don't forget your best stuff. And also, if you love outlining and you got a huge one, let it be a guardrail, not a shackle. You got to figure it out as you're doing it. You got to let it develop. And there's not necessarily one style that's better than the other. You just got to keep going, do the work, and see what ends up being best for you. Above all else, you got to get out there and write. And as always, make sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what to cover next.